Hey everybody, how is it going? Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is the RambleCast. This is September 20th. I'm Cody Toombs.
Hi, I'm Corbin.
I know I always introduce you and I had to throw you a curveball. Uh so yeah, it is a Wednesday. It's a RambleCast. And um we are very much out of the news drought. Things have been happening. Um Lots of things have been
Indeed.
happening, in fact. It's it technically we're not in Techtober, we're in Techtimber or whatever. I hate those terms, but yeah, we're in the stream of news.
Yeah, there's a lot. Of course, last week was Apple stuff. This week we got Amazon announcements today, and then tomorrow, Microsoft is having an event where they will almost certainly talk about Surface stuff. Those already leaked. And then, when is Google's event again? Isn't that like first week of October?
Yes, what was it, the 5th?
Yeah, so that's coming up. So there's
Let's
a lot of
see.
stuff.
Oh, 4th, my bad, I was one day off.
Okay. Yeah, so like a little under 2 weeks from now. Yeah, oh, exactly 2 weeks. Okay. Cool. Um, yep. And everyone in the chat, hi Diablo and Austin and Scuttlefield is downloading Android 14 quarterly something beta 1. I forget what the acronym is.
um yeah, I don't even remember what it stood for either, but yeah, that's that. It's funny
Oh
that they
gosh,
already
don't do it.
have the QPR beta 1 available when they can't seem to even have 14 final yet. So yeah, we're in that kind of weird limbo state where uh they're they're in a complicated arrangement of firmware versions.
Yeah. So yeah, so Amazon stuff was today. They announced a couple different things. They had a live event that I had to sit through. It was pretty boring. Um, Amazon's not good at those. It was a live demo where the guy who was up there, who's about to be replaced, as Cody will discuss momentarily, was having issues getting Alexa to work for a second there. But that's how live demos roll. Certainly wasn't pre-recorded like every Apple event, so Amazon, I guess, could get points there. I don't know. Anyway, they talked about some new Fire TV stuff. They have a new Fire TV Stick 4K Max and a Fire TV Stick 4K, and they also have a Fire TV soundbar. So Amazon's making soundbars now. That's a thing. The 4K Max stick is sort of like their Chromecast, but like the highest end one. It's like the best one before you get to the weird like box thing they sell. That's like where this is at. This is
Mm-hmm.
still very much a little stick you can hide behind your TV if possible. Um, that one they say is their best hardware in a stick yet, which like yes is the latest one of their sticks, so it certainly helps. So it has Wi-Fi 6E, so that's good. Supports Dolby Vision, unlike my Xbox, so some points there. HDR, HDR10 Plus, Dolby Atmos audio. It has 16 gigs of storage. Isn't that this? Is that more than the Chromecast? Is the
Uh,
Chromecast 8 or 16?
does anyone know what the Chromecast storage even
It's not.
is?
It's not enough. I know
Oh,
that
oh,
much.
wait. Sorry. For some reason, I'm thinking of the old Chromecast. The Chromecast with Google TV is 16, I think.
It says it has 4.7 gigabytes of storage.
That's available.
That's the H. Oh, that's the HD one. What about the 4K one? Austin says 8. Okay, so all right, Amazon. This is more expensive than that. This is priced at $60. Now, this is an Amazon Fire TV or Echo product, which means it's going to be on sale every 2 weeks for the rest of the year. So, you will not find this for $60 most of the time. In fact, Amazon has another sale holiday that they've invented next month, where I'm sure all of this stuff will be on sale. So don't pre-order any of this unless like you've got like emergency birthday coming up. This will all be on sale in like 2 weeks, I promise.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they've got a new stick that looks pretty nice. Again, Amazon, like I really don't like Fire TV. I don't really like any of the smart TV platforms anymore. They've all kind of turned into like a little bit of junk. But Amazon's Fire TV is still like kind of open, so you can kind of still sideload stuff, which is nice. Yeah, so besides that, they've got the regular Fire TV Stick 4K, which is their like mid-range. Like you just get that one if you don't really know what you need. It's $50 for now, and they're also updating some of the software in it. And they've got a soundbar. I think the Verge had like a very brief hands-on with it. This is $120, so that's kind of cheap as far as soundbars go. They can get much higher. Again, depends on like how good this sounds in real life, and we don't have a super good picture of that quite yet. And I believe this one is only works over HDMI. It's not HDMI CEC. It's the other thing that soundbars use. Oh, it's ARC. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and also kind of interesting is that I believe this is, and it also can function as a Bluetooth speaker, which other soundbars do. Unlike the Roku soundbar, this is not like a Fire TV stick inside a soundbar. That's not what it is. It's just like a purely external thing for your TV. I imagine it might even work without a Fire TV compatible TV if it's just a soundbar using HDMI ARC, but I'm not sure. But yeah, this is not like the Roku soundbar, which was like a Roku stick integrated into a soundbar. So if you were buying a stick and a soundbar, you could just buy the one thing. This appears to just purely be a dumb soundbar. So
just a dumb soundbar.
Fire TV stuff. They talked about. David said I was expecting to see some Roomba stuff. Yeah, the Amazon's purchase of Roomba has not gone through yet. Unclear if that's going to happen.
I'm actually surprised by how long that's taking.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the
EU got busy with Activision.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's funny how quickly and fully everyone moved on that, but the Roomba stuff has just sort of been in limbo this whole time.
Roomba just has to promise to put its cloud games on NVIDIA GeForce Now, and then it'll go through. It's fine.
Dust Bunny Connect.
Yes, and then there was some new like Echo smart display stuffs. I really don't care. These are all boring. They made one that's like, they call it the Echo Hub. It's like a big smart display that you mount on your wall, and it's intended to work a little bit more like those like smart security systems that have like a wall panel, but it's for like your whole smart home. So basically you could just like put this on the wall and like, you know, a hallway where everyone walks past coming in and out. That might be slightly more convenient. I don't know. They also have a new Echo Show 8 where the screen the screen swivels and it'll like try to rotate to where you're facing.
I love how their press releases have no pictures of these things.
Yeah, you got to click they have the Amazon product links somewhere in there where they have the pictures. Yeah, that's that Amazon one. Yeah. So that's the thing. I don't care about smart displays. I'm honestly not even using smart speakers that much anymore, except for just playing music from my phone. Um, they're just kind of there.
Well, I use it to turn lights on and off, and I use it to turn my TV on and off. But that's about as much as I really ever use them with regularity. Very occasionally I'll ask a question, the classic, like, I don't know, like how tall somebody is. Not usually that exactly, but, how old someone is, I guess, more common.
Yeah, I know when I got my Google Nest, which I just sold because it's been in my closet for a year and I'm not using it. When I got it, I kind of used it a little bit as like a second screen for like YouTube and stuff like that, like next to my monitor. And I was hoping that Google would eventually update it to like give me like a calendar view, just always on there. That never happened or anything like that. Um, so not a really useful. Amazon's platform for this seems a little bit better than Google's at this point, but you're also dealing with Alexa and that whole ecosystem, which has other issues. So
Alexa is really, really a mediocre voice interface. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they talked about that. Kind of the most interesting hardware they announced today is a new Eero. So Amazon owns the Eero mesh router product line, and they announced their first Wi-Fi 7 router today, the Eero Max 7, which is completely new. They haven't made a Max Eero to date. And this is basically targeting like the this is like very enthusiast or like very niche use case. Like this is like super duper top of the line. It has obviously Wi-Fi 7. It has I need to pull up the image of this.
10 gigabit Ethernet. That's the one that jumps out at me.
Yeah. Trying to get, there we go. They have the Eero shop link in that press release. There's the pictures. Yeah, so like when you look at these, they have those stations have 4 Ethernet ports on them, which is much better than the 2 you get on the Pros and the 0 you get on the secondary nodes on the normal Eero. And 2 of those are 2.5 gigabit, and 2 of them are 10 gigabit, which is cool. And also, importantly with these, the backhaul, which is the network link where all of the nodes talk to each other, which is like a separate channel from the actual Wi-Fi network, that backhaul is also multi-gigabit. So you're probably still going to lose some speeds on like those secondary nodes, because that's just, I don't know if anyone's pushing that much data over Wi-Fi yet realistically, but this should be like best case scenario for a mesh network.
Yeah. Yeah, and as chat is saying, and couldn't agree more, holy crap, that price.
Yeah, this is like top of the line, super premium. Like this is the people who are going to Best Buy and being Ron from Parks and Rec, and like, I know what I'm doing. Don't talk to me. I know what I want.
Yeah.
So $1,700 for the 3-pack.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
and $600 for just one. Like you've got to be committed to both mesh networks and to very high-end networking for this to make any kind of sense.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is for the people who have like multi-gigabit internet connections,
or need to move a lot internally. Again, like that 10 gigabit Ethernet, that's really screaming to me. Like, you're somebody who very, very likely has like a lot of things running on your home network.
Yeah. Diablo said, and they still charge for that yearly support for this too. Eero does have a subscription. It's not like required whatsoever. I How it works on the other Eeros is that if you pay for the subscription, some of it is stuff that should just be in the router. Like you get like better pure per device like analytics. Like you can kind of more clearly see like what devices are using the data the most on your network over a long period of time. And then there's other stuff that like is a little bit more understandable. That it's a subscription, like network level content blocking and like privacy stuff. Um, yeah. So that's a big chunker of a mesh Wi-Fi station there, and again up to 7,500 square feet. So if you've got like a farm you want
Yeah.
covered with like the best internet anyone's ever seen, there you go. Um, I will say the one thing that it frustrates me about the other Eero systems, and like I feel like is particularly bad here, unless they've changed it. I don't see any evidence that they've changed it. But my biggest issue with Eero has always been you have to use their app for basically everything. There's not even like other mesh systems, like they're very obviously built to use with the app, but they still have a lot of them still have a very bare bones like web interface where at least I can like reboot the network from my computer if I need to, or check like what an IP address of something on my network is. I don't really want to go find my phone to do those every single time.
I could be mistaken, but I believe Google's is still 100% app only,
Yeah, I believe so.
which, yeah, not a fan of. Um, very much not a fan. But yeah, that is certainly not the best scenario. But I don't know. I don't want to say I can kind of see it because I really can't, but um, that feels like a very Amazon thing to do, to lock everything to an app.
Yeah, it's just especially frustrating because once you get out of like the consumer like mesh systems, like you go to like all of the like gaming routers from like Asus and those kinds of companies, like all of them have like you can do literally everything from any device on the network through the browser. Like they have a pretty solid interface through there. It's
Hmm.
frustrating that like that's still like kind of limited to that area, and like all these cool mesh systems that are coming out are very app centric. Um,
Yeah, that's one pattern we really should have avoided.
yeah, and like if you can do it in the web browser for some reason, like there's no reason why you can't. But like if you can't, can you just make an app for desktop
Hmm.
also? Like that's okay too. I just don't want to go find where my phone is every time I need to like check one thing on my network. Um, but yeah, no, I mean I have, I'm rocking a base Euro 6 over here. All totally fine.
I I won't deny it. I would actually, the moment I saw that 10 gigabit Ethernet part, I immediately thought, hey, I kind of would actually like to see if I can
Yeah.
uh either swing this as a review unit, or someday maybe consider like getting one, or something else that'll do the same, just because I actually have NAS boxes where 10 gigabit is part of their feature set. So it'd
Right.
be
And a lot of those probably don't even have like Wi-Fi 6. So,
oh, NAS never has
yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
um
so yeah. And that's the other limiting thing here is like nothing's going to have Wi-Fi 7 for like another year, 2 years. The first consumer hardware with Wi-Fi 7 probably will be next year.
mhm.
So, with something like this, ideally you would also want like your home servers and like also your computers hooked up to one of the nodes so it can use that as the access point instead of its own Wi-Fi, to get the best possible speeds. But yeah, so that's a cool little router. Again, I It's too expensive for me to even look at. Unfortunately, I think Amazon's going to charge me for looking at the page.
Oh well, who knows? Maybe you could swing a review unit.
Yeah, I'm again like I'd like to get a house at some point, and whenever that happens, I do want to go wild with the networking. I would like to do that, even if it means running Ethernet along walls or something else I can't really do in this one bedroom apartment. Um, I would like some fast speeds, maybe even server closet. That'd be sick. Even if it's just like a Mac Mini on the floor of a closet, and that's the server closet.
That's usually how it works.
Yeah, very power efficient server closet. That would be. At some point, I would like. I do have my home server here that I've like tried to make work with a couple different operating systems, and I kind of like hate everything. So I think my current plan is I'm going to try to like disassemble this and sell it for parts, and then at some point buy a used M1 Mac Mini, and that will be a home server. But don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mac Mini rack, yeah, there are rack mounts for Mac Minis. It also helps that Apple hasn't changed the enclosure for like 10 years. So
Honestly, I think it's a lot longer than that now. But yeah, it is.
That's why.
Yeah, it is the classic
Companies
go-to.
have those racks, and like it's fine. You don't really need to make it any smaller. It's okay.
Yeah. Also, hello to Carson and from earlier, David.
Hello.
Good having you guys here.
Last thing Amazon talked about today that matters is they we're talking about some improvements they're trying to make to Alexa. And I think it's interesting because this is sort of what I expect Google to do with Assistant eventually. So one of the things that I know we've talked about here is how does all of these large language model chatbots affect voice assistants, which are supposed to accomplish the same tasks, but something like Google Assistant or Alexa can do it faster, but sometimes less in a less helpful way, versus something like ChatGPT or Bing Chat might be able to process more, but it takes longer, so it's not really ideal for something like voice assistants. So Amazon is kind of going for a hybrid approach where it seems like Alexa's still going to be using like sort of the how it works now, where it's a more basic AI model that can respond quickly. But they are testing this sort of new experience where you can tell it's the command is Alexa let's chat, and then they were doing the demo on stage, and it kind of puts you into like this more chat like interface that kind of looks like Google Assistant on the smart displays or like Bing Chat, where there's like actual like sort of like what you said, and then below it is like what it responds with. And they were showing off like this would allow for control like multiple commands in one sentence. So like turn off lights and lock a door, which is something that Google I usually handles okay, but Alexa's been bad at. So this is one way to solve that problem. They were also showing off kind of asking questions and getting a response similar to what you get with like Bing. So asking a question that maybe there isn't a direct answer for on the web, or in at least in one of the like web services that Amazon typically uses for answering knowledge questions, which aren't usually that good.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also showing like people asking Alexa to like, you know, write poems and stuff, like whatever people use ChatGPT for. So yeah, some of this was like so this is interesting because I think this is like the hybrid approach we're going to see moving forward, because large language models are really expensive to run and currently pretty inefficient and slow compared to normal Google Assistant or normal Alexa or whatever. So it makes more sense to continue having that baseline AI handle quick things like turn a light on and off. But then when there's something more complicated, you hand that off to something like GPT. And that seems to
Right.
be what Amazon's going for.
And I certainly get that. That's how I would, certainly how I would handle it. Amusingly, just earlier today, I searched for something, and I've got obviously Google's generative AI lab currently turned on. The result that it gave me was half right, but certainly not right enough. And the very first part of what it said was actually outright wrong. But amusingly, I got a survey, just an opinion reward survey, just like, I don't know, 20 minutes, an hour later. And it was asking me about that specific search and basically like, why did this not work for you? And it was a pretty straightforward, like, because it gave me the wrong answer. And
Yeah.
it's not serving anybody particularly well if it's costing them money and giving you bad answers. So, the smart solution to this mostly is to let people really tell the service, right now, I want you to give me an LLM. Normally, just give me search results or just do the basic things. But in this specific instance, give me an LLM to do whatever purpose. That's kind of the smart way to do this. Sort of, as a loose comparison, sort of even Adobe with Photoshop. You can use their various generative AI fill features, and that's something it takes an intentional act to make that happen. It's not something you're just casually getting as an automatic feature.
Yeah. Yeah, so going to be interesting to see where that goes. They were also talking to The Verge and mentioning that this sort of experience might eventually be paid. So yeah,
Nobody will pay for that.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like my issues with Alexa, honestly, are like not even really what this would solve. My issues with Alexa are always, it just exists to sort of sell me more stuff. Like just that is his entire purpose. Like one of the things that's really baffling about it is you have to like again go out of your way to like go find the setting that says like Alexa shut the fuck up when I ask you to turn off the light, and it's like, by the way, did you know you can reorder this on Amazon? I'm like, no, fuck off. I turn that off, it still does it. And then
Honestly, I forgot it did that.
does that.
I refuse to use Alexa for anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and like even there's a lot of stuff that's like should just like Google does by itself without needing any third-party stuff, and Alexa still relies on skills that it makes. Like something like very basic that Alexa does not just have integrated is just like rain sounds, like ambient noise stuff. Like that's all skills that other people made, and like if you like say the wrong one or like one of the like less helpful ones, you will try to like ask if you want to pay for it. Like, no, I'm not paying for the rain, Alexa. Not gonna do that. It's very silly.
yeah, that's sort of it has that app store that was abandoned, but it's not abandoned because all the low budget land rush kind of developers are still targeting it. That's kind of where Skills was, at least last I looked at it. And yeah, there's nobody wants that experience.
Yeah, like when I got an Echo speaker, I have the Echo Dot, And when I got that one, I was excited to try the Pocket Cast skill because that's something that like I could never do directly through Google Assistant because it's not like one of the 5 music services or whatever. And it worked for a while, but then I noticed the Pocket Cast skill will just randomly rewind the podcast by like 20 minutes, and because it's like a speaker, I have no way of like
Hmm.
skipping back. So it's like great. That's great. I'm just gonna Bluetooth from my phone again. So
Oh, that's bad.
yeah, I've not found a skill that's helpful, is what I'm saying.
I remember that the various times that I've reviewed or worked with Amazon hardware, I've tried, like genuinely, I have tried so hard to find skills that would be interesting, and every single time I just come up empty. There's nothing. There's nothing remarkable about them. None of them ever really seem to offer anything that I want that isn't already supplied by either Alexa or they don't offer something that's actually a compelling feature in and of itself. Like if I want that particular thing, Google's service already does it better or does it correctly. And yeah, nobody else is offering it on Alexa in a way that's useful. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure to some people in some context their Alexa's got to be like actually really good for them, but I think they're in the minority.
Yeah, for me it's like fine most of the time, but it's the stuff I described that's frustrating. Um,
So, did you say that Panos made an appearance or didn't?
no,
Okay.
no.
Um, but yeah, I guess, well, just fitting this in as a kind of a tail end of the topic, I assume we're probably going to be seeing him making an appearance the next time Amazon actually holds one of these events. Maybe because these events, for whatever reason, are press only, which is a very weird choice. Because it's in a way, it's good. Like, sort of. In a way, it's good. They're basically telling press, like, we're giving you the opportunity to have a reason for people to come to you as opposed to just getting everything from us, which is kind of nice in its own way for press. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do bring, well, not if, but we now know Panos Panay is going to be moving from Microsoft to Amazon. I I suppose he's probably going to start doing some of these presentations, and if so, I'm imagining they'll probably not want to keep that from the public as much.
Yeah,
Hard to say, but it certainly seems logical.
that's what he's good at. The man could sell a foldable phone. Um, Not enough, but
Yeah, I was gonna say,
he
could
was
he?
he was trying his best.
I I gotta admit, I still don't understand it. I just did not get what people liked about his presentation style.
I don't know. I think he stands out because he's one of the few like executives they let on these stages that like feels like they care, and they're not just like reading a script that someone else made that they first looked at 20 seconds ago. That very
Yeah.
well could still be happening with him and all those Microsoft events. I don't know, but um, that is more rare to have someone higher up at a company like the ones they let on the stage, um, and talk about those things. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. If he's working on Amazon and Alexa stuff, like kind of the other issue with Amazon lately is that there's been a lot of reports that like Alexa's losing the money. I'm sure that's why it's annoying trying to monetize, trying to get me to pay for things because Amazon needs better quarterly revenue.
Yeah, they're
So
not making enough money at all.
yeah, poor Amazon. Um, so there's maybe going to be some kind of upheaval there. I'm interested to see what that looks like, but we'll uh, we'll see. Um, Amazon certainly has a lot of consumer hardware at this point. When you count the Fire tablets, the Echo ecosystem. Shut up. Uh, the Eero stuff they own. I don't think they own Blink. They own um, other smart camera thing. I think it starts with an S.
Oh,
Someone's gonna get in the chat in a second.
probably.
Mine's not working. Anyway. Oh, yeah. So that'll be interesting.
And not technically smart home, but don't they also own Tile?
No. No. Tile's owned by a creepy data broker company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't they own one of the smart trackers?
I don't think so.
Mm.
I think they've made oh, Ring. I'm sorry, Ring is the Amazon smart company.
Eh,
I think
you got the adjacent letter.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the Amazon stuff. Can move on to what to move on to.
Paint.
Paint. Okay.
May as well.
Making me keep talking. Okay.
Well, we can certainly switch.
It's okay. I got this.
Okay.
I got this. I can talk.
So yeah, Microsoft is going to be doing a new version of, or sorry, heavily updating the Paint app to actually be, let's call it useful.
Yeah, this is one of many apps in Windows that Microsoft has actually been making great improvements to in Windows 11. Again, why I said before, like, I want to be Team Windows 11 because there's a lot of really great stuff in it, but then there's also a lot of really annoying stuff, so I get conflicted. But Paint was one of the apps that like they had just not touched since like Windows 7. And
I mean,
finally,
let's be honest. The Paint app has basically been a meme for 20 years.
Yeah, like even the Windows 7 update, it was just sort of like a UI overhaul. It didn't really get any new features. Like it was still just like you're drawing or pasting images on a canvas. Once you paste stuff, like you can't like move it again. So Microsoft, when Windows 11 first came out, it got a UI overhaul. It still sort of has like a ribbon toolbar interface like Windows 7, but it's the new modern UI. It's got a dark mode now. And earlier this month, they were talking about how Paint would support removing the background from images. So you could give it like a picture of like, a portrait of a person and it would take out the background, similar to what like Apple's, I forget what they call it, but like their like live sticker thing where you can turn pictures into stickers. Photoshop has this too, like you can select the subject of the image, presumably using some AI thing. And more recently, they've talked about something that's a little bit more like pretty foundational change to Paint, which is that it will support layers and transparency. So, that's a pretty big change to how Paint has worked up until this point, where it's just it's a completely destructive editor. Like once you make changes, you can't really undo them past the point of like clicking undo a couple times. I don't know what the limit there is, but this brings it more in line with like Paint.net and the other photo editor that has a weird name, and Krita, and like all these other, like it's still not Photoshop, but it's getting there.
Yeah, it's a pretty far cry from Photoshop, but I'll give it credit. The background removal is like an actual legitimate accomplishment, whereas most of the features that they've had were sort of I almost want to call them the college, like junior project level of things. They're just very, very easy to build.
Yeah, like now it's getting to the point where like a lot of the like quick images I make for articles, like I could do in Paint. I'm not going to because I already pay for Photoshop, but I could. And they've also added a couple other like small stuff recently, like you can I think before the zoom feature was like you could only pick like certain percentages, but now they actually have a slider and you can type in a percentage of zoom again like Photoshop and other editors. So it's actually getting to be a pretty nice editor. I do wonder if like in a year or so we're gonna now be having a discussion of like how many people need to download another photo editor because like this might be usable.
Um, I I don't know how far you would want to go down that road of as a topic, but a couple of things do stand out to me. Not least of which is Paint.net in particular supports plugins, and that I get the impression is a pretty long way off from what they're going to be doing with the Paint app. Now, granted, the Paint app, I'm sure, sort of in the how much do people need plugins question, like a lot of people don't. Obviously, like most people, I think, probably get the Paint or Paint.net and probably never actually install any plugins. They just use it as a reasonably advanced image editor.
Yep.
And I'm sure that the Paint app could probably implement a lot of those features, but just watching like their animation here, I don't see anything about blending modes. I don't see anything about being able to select based on luminance or like individual color values, things like that. There's a lot of stuff I think they would have to implement before this could start competing with that. But to be fair, this is also the sort of thing, it's sort of the best comparison I have is sort of like installing Windows and then using Edge when you need a browser before you go download Chrome or Firefox or something like that. Like,
yeah, like the goal should just be like something that can handle like sort of the basic use cases.
yeah, you don't necessarily need a lot. You probably just need to like crop your image or maybe pull out a basic sticker or something like that. Yeah, this is perfectly good for those purposes. I would also raise the question, because Microsoft is generally good at this kind of thing. I wonder if they could maybe make this sort of like a workflow step where maybe apps could take advantage of this technology just to like remove a background or something like that. That would be a really nice thing to actually implement and make a useful stage, which is also, kind of summons to mind their Copilot features.
Yeah. No, David said this looks like Paint 3D. Yeah, I think Paint 3D is completely dead. I don't even know if it's in Windows anymore, but that's kind of been a theme with Windows 11 is they're taking basically just been like, yeah, the experiment of like these universal apps failed. We're now going to take the good parts of those and bring them over to the apps that people actually use. So that's why Paint's getting updates. That's why Notepad is getting updates. That's why the File Explorer is finally getting updates, because during the like Windows 8 and 10 era, they tried like 3 different times to just build a new Explorer from scratch, and they gave up every time because that's really hard. So, yeah, Diablo said I like this approach better. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, they tried with a totally new framework. No one used it. It was pretty bad. Now they're bringing those APIs and that design framework to just the Win32 app format. Seems to be working fine. So yes, that's cool. I don't know what to do next.
You wanted to mention the Windows Photos stuff.
Didn't I already do that?
Something about background blur.
Oh, yeah, that's just like sort of related to this. Is now the Photos app in Windows, which is the viewer app, like the like preview on Mac, can do like a little bit of editing, like background blur effects. That is also like, I do wonder if at some point Microsoft would merge that with Paint, um, because the sort of different. I don't know. It's also sort of the difference between like Photoshop and Lightroom being dedicated apps, like a little bit of a different use case, but I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's where my brain immediately went with that. And then I started thinking, no, that kind of doesn't fit, because the Lightroom has its own very specific purposes, whereas the Photos app, it has some of the same function as Lightroom, but it's not really, it's not really all of that. It's more of a viewer previewer kind of thing.
Yeah, in both of these, you're like editing one thing at a time.
Yeah.
You're not doing like batch edits or anything super fancy.
Yeah, so to an extent, I kind of feel like maybe this is more like, I guess, kind of like that, like screenshot editor that Apple has on Mac OS. Like, you have the preview mode, and then you can just click a couple of things to do very, very basic operations.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this feels like to me. So, but yeah, it's still similar. Anyway. Oh. Coming back? We lost Corbin. Did he break his computer again? Anyway, let's see. While he's likely figuring that one out. Is he figuring that one out? Sending him a message. Anyway, so let's see. It looks like they are also adding keyword-based searching, kind of like Google Photos has had for a while. That's actually a pretty good addition. It's something that obviously it's hard to actually add that and have it be effective. Let's see. Jitsy's not loading for you. Damn it. I'm starting to wonder if Jitsi might be going downhill suddenly. Have you tried other browsers? I know you always have at least 2 installed. Probably 3. Actually, I know you have 3 installed. Safari, Firefox, and Chrome, right? Google Meet's time to shine. Oh god. Oh god. I don't know that I can go back to Google Meet. After all the trash talking we've done to Google Meet, they might not let us. Anyway, let's see. So, location search, again, another good feature. I'm a little surprised this stuff wasn't there before. The more I think about it, that's just one of those features that I feel like almost everything has. Though even as I say that, I'm starting to wonder if that's actually something even in Mac OS. I don't think it is. I'd have to check, and I'm not sure I have enough images that have location tags on them for that to even be particularly useful. Support for motion photos, which, let's see. From the wording, it doesn't really indicate if they were already supporting Apple's live photos or whatever they're called, but it supports the ones from Samsung and Google. So that's, good, I guess. I do wonder a little bit. I'm not against this, but I'm curious how many people actually have those. I've started to catch on, I never hear or see anybody with an iPhone talking about this anymore. It seems like that was a thing that was around for 2 to 3 years, and then it just sort of vanished. And like, I don't remember the last time I even got one of these on my Pixel phone. Corbin, that screen makes no sense. Let's see. I'm not getting... Yeah, I'm not getting any sort of request from you. Huh. What in the world? I wonder if maybe I need to... Here. I'm gonna quickly try if I can find a window to do that with. Sorry, 1 second while we sort of debug the insanity of this whole thing. Let's just pop over to me for a second. And I will... I'm just leaving the Jitsi page. And going back into it. Okay. I guess we're working again?
Yeah, I don't know. I just tried like 4 different web browsers, and Firefox is working.
Very wild.
I don't know. Every single other browser in like incognito mode and whatever is pulling up the like weird moderator prompt.
When I reopened it, it tried asking me, or asked it basically saying like the moderator hasn't arrived yet, and I could click login to, I guess, become the moderator. I don't know.
I don't know. Eventually you might need to make like a new URL where like you're definitely a moderator. I don't know. But
yeah, that, or maybe just move away from Jitsi or something. We'll see. The beauty is it's not like it really matters what I use. Yeah, because I'm just doing the window capture. I'm not doing any funky CSS stuff with this anymore, so it kind of doesn't matter all that much.
We could do FaceTime.
No, we can't.
You're on your Mac, aren't you?
Yeah, but I won't use it.
Okay. Well, could use Skype. Skype supports meetings up to 24 hours, so.
Oh, so yeah, we just have to refresh it once, so it could last the entire duration of a live stream.
Yep. I'm just spitballing here.
Oh, yeah, we'll see. Anyway, hey Nils, how's it going?
FaceTime probably would work the best.
Oh god, Diablo coming in with the worst of the services. No way.
Don't mention Zoom here.
We will never go to Zoom. All the other services could completely go under, and we will not use Zoom. Actually, okay, here's one other that we also won't use because it is equally bad. Slack. Yeah. Slack video chat is just... I've only kind of used it once, and it is the worst. Though Discord isn't that great either.
Discord's okay.
It's serviceable.
I don't know how long you can like call though. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it's all horrible. Anyway, so did you have any other points that you wanted to talk about on this one? I kind of ran over the other topics just to describe them, but
nope.
Okay. Well, in that case, let's talk about some iPhone news. Because of course there's no way that we could have gotten through the event without there being weeks and weeks of follow-up, and we now have our first real hardware confirmation, which is the iPhone 15 has a normal USB-C port. Yeah, there's apparently no wackiness to this. At least that's what we're hearing.
Yeah, and yeah, this was one of the concerns leading up. Is like, yeah, Apple like could switch to USB-C, but maybe they would limit the charging speed to just their certified cables, or only the certified cables could do like data or something. Um, there were a lot of theories because this is something Apple did with Lightning. But nope, it's just normal USB-C with normal USB power delivery. Ars Technica tried a bunch of like cables and chargers, and they all worked. You know, as long as it supports normal USB power delivery, which is basically all of them, you're good. So don't have to worry about buying what I'm sure Apple's expensive USB-C cables are. Those aren't necessary. You can go grab some from Anchor. Your iPhone won't yell at you. So yeah, that's good.
I'm still going to append a hefty boldface yet on the end of that. I have a feeling one of these days something's going to happen, and we're all of a sudden it's just going to be like, oh, certain USB-C cables will work, but they're really, really speed capped. And then before you know it, I have a feeling Apple's going to, or maybe Apple will pop up with a new quote standard that is going to be, special somehow. I mean, it's not necessarily going to happen.
I don't know. I again, like I was always on the side of like I think people were getting a little worked up over the possibility of something like this, because the iPad was already on USB-C and it just was normal USB-C port. The only difference is that Apple sells a magnitude higher number of iPhones than they do iPads, so they could have tried some like weird product segmentation there, but clearly they decided to just do a normal USB-C port. So really the only catch is that the base iPhone 15 is USB 2 and the Pro is 3, which is probably just because the iPhone 15 has the chipset from last year, which has a USB 2 like bridge on it for that
Right.
connection, because Lightning was only USB 2. So presumably next year, when the current Pro chip cycles down, they'll both be USB 3, or the base will be USB 3, and maybe the Pro is like Thunderbolt or something. Who knows?
Yeah, both are certainly possible. I agree. I'm pretty confident it just comes down to the fact that the old USB-C controller, or sorry, the old USB controller was 2 point whatever. So yeah, that's 100% why the base model was limited. The biggest reason I'm still skeptical about Apple necessarily staying on the good side of things here is I think that their switch to USB-C was a bit late stage. I mean, the law that was proposed obviously has been in the works, and Apple knew that was coming for a while, but they were obviously lobbying against it for pretty hard. And we know that they didn't want to make the switch. But then it happened earlier this year, and we know that the development cycle for phones is never just a few months. So I have a sneaking suspicion that Apple probably made this change pretty late in the game, and therefore maybe they didn't have time to really go back to the drawing board and implement MFi in USB-C the way that they probably would have wanted to. And, maybe now that they're already here, maybe they'll just decide to scrap that whole thing and not worry about it. On the other hand, again, this is Apple. This is a company that, as we're about to discuss, even makes it so internal components don't work together without very customized handshakes being designed into the equation. So, I'm not sitting here predicting it's going to happen. I'm sitting here saying, I won't be surprised if it does. It's sort of I would not want to discount it and just automatically trust Apple's going to do the good thing here. And David, I need to readjust the tinfoil hat. Possibly. But hey, all things considered, at least for the 15, this is good news.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's an alarm.
Are you desperately escaping?
No, but I might need to step away in a few minutes for a little bit.
Okay. Well, as just alluded to, the iPhone has, or at least the iPhone 14 has now undergone a bit of a reputational failure. iFixit has come along and basically said, yeah, no, we made a mistake. We are retroactively going to tank the iPhone 14's repairability score. And with good reason, because the components inside are basically locked to other components inside. They do not want to talk to each other unless they have been sort of blessed by the factory, or well, not by the factory, but by Apple proper. There's a whole long story here on how this works, what the details are, if you haven't already read it from the Discord chat. There's a link in the YouTube chat where you can find this article. I won't go back over everything, but the simple explanation is iFixit has been getting complaints for years about how various components in an iPhone don't work properly if you just simply replace them, even with official Apple components sourced possibly even directly from Apple. You have to get Apple itself to bless the connection between two components based on their serial numbers, at which point they can then work together if that replacement takes place. That's how much it takes in order to make things work happily. In some cases, if you use components that haven't been blessed, you may get warnings. You might have features that don't work. You might have all kinds of unpleasant behaviors, or the whole phone just simply might not work. It's all a possibility.
Yeah.
And here's the infamous, or now quickly becoming infamous chart where it shows all the different ways in which things kind of don't work or are broken if you simply replace a part.
Yeah, and none of this is new. Like, this was all talked about when Apple introduced the self-repair system, because that also involves, even after you do repair yourself, you are calling Apple and saying, hey, I replaced a part, can you do the server side switch thingy? And they will do it, and then the iPhone will respond properly. But clearly that is additional work, or doesn't always work. I'm not sure what the exact complaint is, but it's not ideal. And obviously this causes issues where third-party parts really aren't an option. So whenever Apple would stop making screens for an iPhone or whatever, then you're just kind of screwed. And one part in this iFixit article I thought was interesting was crud, I'm not gonna find it.
Well, while you're looking, I'll just add in the other big problem is you basically can't mix and match parts. So if a particular iPhone, let's say the screen gets broken and that's the only thing wrong with it, and another iPhone maybe dies due to uh, I don't know, make up any particular reason. Maybe there's a short in the motherboard, for whatever reason. You can't take the screen from one and just smack it into another device. Like, all the parts are still legitimate. They're all still made by Apple. They're all official. There's no third-party component in here. But yeah, that Frankenstein together device is still going to offend Apple's paired connections, which kind of really screws with a lot of repair shops that do salvage old parts and prevent them from just becoming e-waste. Anyway, so go on with the thing you were looking for.
Oh, well, of course I still can't find it, but they had some quotes in here about like repair stores just kind of giving up with iPhone repairs because this entire process is immensely frustrating. And of course, like no one else really does this. I don't think Samsung does this with their repairs. You can buy one of their like iFixit as part of a Samsung now, so you can buy like a screen replacement kit that has like a screen and the tools you need to replace a screen on a S22 or whatever. And I don't think there's any like authentication stuff with this. The like one part with this is that Apple has repeatedly like sort of integrated the Face ID stuff in like the other panels, so there's like a security factor to this where like if it's not like a genuine whatever, then like maybe that could compromise the security of your phone, but that needs to be more of a separate component or something, or you know whatever the solution here is obviously not ideal. um and iFixit even says like they don't really like criticizing manufacturers when they're like making progress on an issue. Like Apple is the iPhones are no longer like entirely held together by glue and false hope, so that's nice, but they're still not ideal, obviously. um so iFixit is trying to push Apple to be a little bit better. They've downgraded their repairability score on the iPhone 14 series to a 4 out of 10. um so
It was previously a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, and they even say later down in this article, they're not retroactively rescoring earlier iPhones right now. If they did, the scores would also go down because they have the same problems, but probably worse because they were built to be less repairable when you go back to like a few years ago. And they even, iFixit says Apple could fix this problem with a software update, and that 7 out of 10 score could return overnight. Even though they recently signaled their support for right to repair in California, these problems showed that they are not taking the situation seriously enough. Which, yep, that's valid.
Yeah. No, I fully get why they're not going to go back and rescore the previous ones, just on the basis that, frankly, why? This is, in a way, this is more of a punitive change. They're making a point, taking a stand, but they don't. There's not really much of a benefit to going back. However, if I were iFixit, I would make the note: we're not going to go back and rescore the old ones, but we are going to go back and add notes to our previous things, basically saying, here's the thing that's happened. Here's why we're not rescoring this, but just know that this does deserve a lower score. Like, basically sort of the footnote of, we're not going to bother with it. It's not worth the cost. It's not worth the time. There's no benefit to rescoring.
Yeah. And David said this has been known for years, though. Why did it take this long to take it into consideration? I mean, I think that they said part of this was like software updates that sort of made the situation a little bit worse, and also the fact that like the iPhone 14 came out last year. I believe Samsung's push into more repairable devices was like around that time or slightly afterwards. So now looking back, it's more clear like, oh, Apple could have done better here. I do still think that this is. I'm not gonna say like I don't know how to describe this without being mean. So, but this is more of like a we're doing this not to like maintain an accurate score of this iPhone model, but just to like raise awareness that Apple needs to do better here. Um, if nothing else, then because Apple just got a wave of good publicity for supporting that California bill. So this is like a reality check, like, guys could be doing better. You gotta, you can't just, you gotta walk the walk too.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. So I'm I have a theory about how this conversation went. Because I suspect that they probably had multiple internal conversations about how to actually deal with this. My hunch is Apple, during this last event, they very specifically made a point of talking up how repairable the 15 is. And they're getting some praise for this. I think iFixit rightfully wants to give them a proper nod for the fact that the 15 is going to be more repairable. And the 14 is obviously also improved. So, these were valid improvements. The problem is that they also want to be able to show that the 15 improved over the 14. So if they implemented this new system only now and applied it only to the 15, then they would have to, or, the 15, despite the fact that it's more repairable than the 14, supposedly, it would have a lower score than the 14. So that explains why they'd have to go back and readjust the 14. As to why they're only doing it now, I agree. Well, honestly, I think it has to do with the fact that Apple is bragging about repairability. Basically, like, they prompted this unintentionally, as it were, but Apple basically was saying, look at how great we are, we're super repairable. And people have been saying for ages, no, you're not. And as a result, basically this kind of had to come to a head. I do kind of wonder if iFixit has had this in the works for a long time, or if maybe this is something that they've been kicking around but didn't really commit to until Apple made its claim. There's a lot of different ways that could have happened. It could have happened over any different time frame. It's really tough to tell. But yeah. And even they describe it at one point as the canary in the coal mine. Where this all started with things that could be attributed to security, but then over the years, it started becoming another thing and another thing and another thing. And look, as someone who has been in a relationship that I would even describe as sort of the frog in the frying pan scenario, where things just keep getting worse and you just keep making excuses to ignore it. Like, I could see where iFixit at a certain point was like, oh, now that we look back over this, we gotta do something. It's no longer okay for us to just overlook all the problems that have added up over the years. So yeah, I think that's, I kind of buy that was their issue, is they allowed for the exceptions to pile up, and it wasn't until Apple basically said, look how great we are, that iFixit was suddenly in a position of saying, no, this is actually really bad. You can't just claim to be excellent when you've become this bad.
Yeah, and like one of the, I don't know, the situation with iFixit to me is really fascinating, because this is sort of like an advocacy group that is now merged into being like a repair operation for these OEMs,
Yeah.
right? Like Samsung has sort of like outsourced their responsibility here to iFixit, where the solution, if you want to repair something yourself, you go to iFixit's website and you buy their kit that has a Samsung part in it with iFixit tools. So they're in kind of like a weird, unique situation here. But like, they don't really seem to be like using that for malicious reasons. So
Not in
like, I
bad
guess
faith.
right. It'd be different if like their repair kit was like $200, and then Samsung was like, "Wait, the screen in that kit's only $20. What are you guys doing over there?" But
No,
yeah, and
that sounds more like an LTT thing.
yeah, and David said, "How do you think they maintain the iPhone resale value? Because they actually support the iPhones for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's part of it. Like, obviously, a factor is just like there's demand for Apple stuff because it's Apple. It's sort of still clinging on to like a premium experience, perception of a premium experience, even though they sell a lot of budget stuff now too. But it's also just that like the lifespan of an iPhone is still pretty different from Android phones. Like even partially because Apple sells them for longer. So, like Apple's still selling iPhone 13s right now, not the mini. We've discussed that, but the other
Yes.
ones and the 14, and they're selling them because they're going to get updates for like probably 5 more years, at least.
I think there's also a factor here. This feels so cynical to say it this way, but you know, take this as not a theory, but a devil's advocate explanation. In a weird way, it serves Apple well to try to sell replacement parts this way because of those software updates. If you support a phone for, let's say, 5 to 7 years, chances are there are going to be components that get damaged or broken or go bad in that time. And
I mean, that most people are going to run through the battery.
yeah, the battery's
real bad.
almost guaranteed to be the thing. Though you never know, there can be other things. Breaking a display is still obviously very common. And some people have been known to break various other parts. I don't think the Taptic engine has technically had much of a failure rate, but I assume there's got to be some amount of failure rate to that. And various other parts. Anyway, if you can ensure that people have to get parts from you, pay you for brand new parts, you're making good money on a phone that you're still supporting. And so it actually incentivizes Apple to keep supporting older phones because they're going to make more money off of supporting them. And at the same time, they get great press for, of course, supporting a phone longer.
Right, it's in their best interest to do this just because it keeps you in the ecosystem. Like if my iPhone's still working, like all right, I have a reason to keep paying for iCloud, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. And if someone's sitting there with, let's say, a 3 or 4 year old phone, obviously if you were in the Android space, you're going to say, no, I just have to buy a new phone. Like, what would even be the point of this? If it's an iPhone that's 3 or 4 years old, you might look at it and say, oh, well, you know what? It's only going to cost me, I don't know. Let's make up a number and say $100. Actually, what is the back glass? The rear glass is now $169. You might sit there and say, you know what? Sure, I'll pay $169 to replace the rear glass. That's, expensive. It's not pleasant, but it's worth it to keep this phone alive, which is going to still be usable for 3 more years.
Yeah, and that is the one point. Like I do when I'm trying not to go to bat for Apple. They don't need it. They've got a lot of money.
I don't think any of us are going to bat for Apple here, but
yeah.
Go ahead.
But like that is the one thing that like does frustrate me a little bit when people go to the argument of like, oh, Apple just makes disposable expensive shit. Like it's like, well, no. When I look at smartphones as a whole, I just went to Apple's security releases page where they list like the security software updates that go out for their devices. And earlier this month, they pushed, security updates for like the current iOS 16, now 17, but also backup versions. So like a security update for iOS 15, which went to the iPhone 6s, which is from 2018. So that's a 7 year. Am I doing the math right?
No.
Year old phone? No, I'm not. 2023 minus 20. I'm sorry, that was 15. I'm sorry. The iPhone 6s is from 2015, so that's 8 years. So that's an 8-year-old phone that's still supported with security updates. No one in Android world is doing that. It's really just like
no.
we go to custom ROMs and also
NVIDIA Shield, son.
Fairphone. Okay, NVIDIA. Yeah. one Android TV box and
Yes.
Fairphone. That's it.
Oh, we have to always give it back to the NVIDIA.
So that's still pretty good, and that's again goes back into like why the phones are more valuable, and also why like even when I'm talking about like budget phones, like I know the iPhone SE looks really old and it's got a tiny screen, but like it's going to get updates for longer than every other phone in that price segment.
Oh yeah.
And it's not going to be close. Like really the only competition there is Samsung, and they're doing, I believe it's 4 OS updates on like their A50 series, which is pretty nice. And then I think security updates for I think it's 4 years is their minimum. They're still sticking to on those. That's not 8 years. And that's updating the phones before they got like really really good at making chipsets. I'm assuming the iPhone 15 would get more than that, but I don't know. That's too far to tell into the future. But like even their like much lower powered chipsets are still getting patched.
Right. So, yeah, this I mean, in a way, it's hard to fault Apple for their software support, but it's so damn easy to fault them for how they're handling phone repairs.
This is the two tiers of like making phones last longer. Is you make the hardware more repairable and maintainable, and you make the software go for as long as possible. Apple's got the software part down, but they've still got a way to go on the hardware.
Yeah, whereas Samsung has kind of got the hardware side down, and at least among Android, they're good with the software support. They're not good enough, but they're good.
They're the best among Android phones for sure.
Well, as Nils points out, Xiaomi is doing 5 years now to Samsung's 4.
I thought Samsung was doing 5 for.
Yeah, actually, that
maybe a few. I looked this up.
Yeah, maybe it's certain models.
A month ago. Hold on. I know they treat the flagships differently still.
And Carson, by the way, that's literally our next topic.
Yeah, I'll probably do the Chromebook one and then bail out because I gotta do stuff.
Yeah, fine, be that way.
Okay, so last year, so this is a press release from February 2022 on Samsung's website. I'll put this in the chat. So like Neil says, they do four years of major Android OS updates, and then 5 years of security patches on the flagships. So that the 5 years includes the S phones, the Z phones, so the foldables, the flagship tablets, and the watches. That's not the Galaxy A phones that are the budget ones that like you'd get. Honestly, like with how carrier's selling them, you might even be able to get like a normal iPhone in like the price range of a Galaxy A50 or A70 phone in the US. But
if you're willing to put up with carrier BS,
yeah. So Um, yeah, and,
Okay.
and and then everyone else is garbage compared to Samsung. Like, don't even try. Like every time, eh, there's a very nice PR person at Motorola that emails me every time they have an announcement. I'm just like, I can't tell people to buy your phones. You're so
Yeah.
bad at this. I would feel bad doing so.
Yeah. That
Please
there are
buy
ethical
this eight.
concerns there.
Yeah, it's like this. Here, this $800 Motorola phone. It will maybe get 2 updates. You're welcome.
Um yeah, okay. So uh, in terms of topics, Carson makes a good point because the Chromebook thing, are there any details to actually talk about, or are we just going to kind of shake Google's hand for extending their Chromebook support?
I want to poo poo on Google actually.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
I'm going for it.
okay.
I'm continuing to be the resident Chromebook hater.
I mean, you're in good company on that one. I have no love of Chromebooks, but um,
Where did the Chromebook thing go? Oh, here it is. Here we go. The Google blog post. Yeah, so Google announced that Chromebooks will now get 10 years of updates. So
mhm.
that's the big news. Before it was like 8-ish. Um, but there's a lot of catches to this that frustrate me. So again, the reason why Google's doing this, I'm pretty sure, is because they've gotten blasted with multiple like big news stories about schools buying Chromebooks in droves, especially during COVID, because they're so cheap, they're so easy to manage. The kids can't fuck them up. Like you just do a little reset and they're good to go now. They're like great. That I doesn't surprise me at all that these are all over school systems.
Yeah,
Again,
they
because
did a
you,
legitimately good job making something that was easy to manage and could be run for cheap. Like the
yeah,
parts are cheap, which is great.
yeah, and of course, now there's a bunch of reports of like schools having to toss out like perfectly good Chromebooks because they reached the end of their support life. Even though they might still be working functionally, like they're not, they can't safely be used because after Chrome OS update ends, that's it. Google doesn't let you like unlock the bootloader and put Linux or something on it. There's no like Windows drivers for most of these Chromebooks. Again, Linux is not really an option. You're just stuck on this OS, and especially stuck on. I know they're like trying to solve this. I don't know if this is fully rolled out yet. They've been trying to separate the Chrome from Chrome OS for a while, so that the browser part could keep getting updates even if the OS was done. I don't know if they've done that, but like even so, you're dealing with an unsupported operating system, and that's a big security risk as time goes on. Um, so Google is now pushing that to 10 years. But if you read the blog post, they say starting in 2024, if you have a Chromebook release from 2021 onwards,
Mm.
you'll get 10 years. So all the schools that bought Chromebooks in 2020 for COVID or before that point, no, you don't get anything. And it's really only for newer Chromebooks. And there's still an issue where I wrote an editorial about this for Android Police like several years ago. I should probably just write it again. That's what I'm great at. I've now been doing this long enough. I could just repeat my own ideas, and they're like new because everyone forgets. But uh, the issue here also is that 10 years doesn't start. It starts when the product is released.
Hmm.
So how many schools are
Oh no. Uh oh, good. You made it
Jitsi
right back.
Jitsi stupid? Anyway, um, so as I was saying, like how many schools are going shopping for Chromebooks, and they just happen to pick a model that's like 2, 3, or 4 years old. Like uh, the IT people might know, like understand this, or that might just be the only option because a lot of schools don't have enough funding. Like maybe they can't get the latest Chromebook that just came out. They have to pick the one that they can get a bulk discount on that's like 2 years old. That Asus wants to get rid of, or Acer or whatever.
I mean, I have to give. So I have to give a little bit of leniency on that particular aspect of the argument, just because when you factor it all in, it let's say a company or a school or whatever decides to buy a Chromebook and they knowingly choose to buy one that's 5 years old. That shouldn't reset the counter for that company. Just because someone out there is still selling Chromebooks that are 5 years old. So I will grant I don't think it's necessarily fair to hold that degree of a standard. And 10 years is actually a pretty good long time given the price of the Chromebooks. Well, maybe not all of them. Some are definitely more premium. But I think 10 years is almost kind of designed to factor in the idea that some Chromebooks are going to just be purchased sort of late into their life. Because again, like if you're buying something that's 5 years old, you're probably getting it for dirt cheap. And if you're still going to get another 5 years of updates out of that, that's solid. That actually is pretty solid for whatever price you're going to be paying for something that's, again, 5 years old in this hypothetical. The counterpoint to that is in this transition time before 2024 kicks in, and well, sorry, before the 2021 timeline, like as we go for the next few years, this is a bad deal. Like until we get to, I guess it'd be what, 20 let's see, the previous was it 8 years or 7? I don't know. Anyway,
it depended on the model.
Okay, so I guess until we get to about 2028-ish, this is not really improving much of the situation.
Right. I mean, it's not retroactive. Like that's my issue with it.
It probably should have been retroactive to say at least 2019. That would have solved most of the issues and strife over this. And yeah, they're gonna kind of burn a lot of people just because they don't want to support them.
Yeah, and Carson brought up in the article, it does say for Chromebooks released before 2021 and already in use, users and IT admins will have the option to extend automatic updates to 10 years from the platform's release, which is a different thing. That's not going to be 10 years either. For most of them, that's going to be 8 or 9.
That's pretty good still.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. Not a huge improvement, but yeah, someone brought up, Diablo brought up do iPads get 10 years? And no, they don't.
I would love to throw that back as how many schools are using iPads instead of Chromebooks.
That's the thing is like I know Apple like kind of tries to make that happen, but that doesn't seem to have happened on a wide scale because you still have to buy a keyboard and other stuff.
Well, and also I hate to make it about this, but it is about this. The schools that are using iPads typically are, there's no polite way to say it. It's the rich kids' neighborhoods. It's not a lot of budget challenged schools that are really packing full of iPads. Certainly there are iPads floating around in some schools, but you don't have Nils. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's the rich schools that do have the iPads, whereas
it's the well-funded schools, it's the private charter schools, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't care about the support cycle as much. they're more willing to replace the hardware every 3 to 4 years. And who knows, they might not even be providing the iPads. They might just simply have it as a requirement that students come with their own. Regardless, yeah, it's a little bit less of an issue to them, and Chromebooks are a little bit more widespread with the schools that have to operate on tighter budgets.
Yeah.
Not only can you get a Chromebook, which is screen, keyboard, etc., all for less than it costs to get an iPad, but yeah, your support cycle is longer, and they are a little bit easier and cheaper to manage. All of that stuff kind of makes the Chromebook more appealing to that group. Whereas, again, with the rich neighborhoods, you start getting into iPad territory. In fact, if you, I don't remember how many years ago it was. I want to say this was 2017 or 16, one of the two. Apple even held a education event where they were really hyping up using iPads in schools. And this is like when they rolled out textbooks and iBooks. They were really hyping up all their management capabilities, things like that. And the thing is, like, you could watch this and it looks really impressive. It looks wonderful. And then you just ask, like, which schools are getting this? Which schools are making heavy use of this? And the answers were very clearly like, oh, this is for charter schools. This is for private schools. This is for the thing where the parents go on a tour of the school to decide if they want to send their kid there. And the school can basically use iPads as a sort of selling point for, look how good of an education your kid's going to get because we use the more expensive thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's really what that has become.
Yeah, and I again, like, the thing I keep coming back to with Chromebooks, which also affects iPads, but I see that differently just because, yeah, like, iPad is like more of a consumer device. Like, yeah, it could be in schools, but that's not like the reality of what has happened. Um, the issue I still have with Chromebooks is that the updates are tied. They're like arbitrary. Like, I don't know, maybe Chrome OS in 10 years will still work on a lot of Chromebooks on the market today, but that doesn't matter because Google set this date for them where they're going to die. Um, and especially after that point where there's no option. Like, it is like an iPad where that's it. They will not let you unlock the bootloader. There's no drivers for other operating systems. And like, what's so silly is that Google bought Cloud Ready, which that entire business is porting Chrome OS to older hardware so that you can keep managing it like a Chromebook. But there's no like upgrade path there. There's like, Google isn't coming out and saying, okay, once your Chromebook is dead, you can switch to Cloud Ready, which is going to have fewer features, like it doesn't have the Play Store. But that's something. They're not doing that. Um, so yeah, that's like the main thing with Chromebooks that's still frustrating to me. And realistically, like, 10 years is pretty good, but like, there should still be an option that doesn't involve it becoming a brick afterwards. Like, that's sort of the issue. Like, I know when I was in high school, uh, I went there. I think it was the first year after the school district switched all their computers to Windows 7, and there were like netbook type laptops that absolutely could not handle Windows 7. They took like 20 minutes to log in. Um, Once they got going, they were okay, but it's like, clearly I was using those in schools because the alternative would have been no laptop.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that was it. So it's like, I'm sure that's better, right? Like, that is better than nothing. And Google doesn't have that option here. It's just sort of like, you get the updates and then you're done.
Yeah. Again, I'm looking at 10 years and I'm thinking that's a pretty solid lifespan for something that's costing.
It's
I don't know what they cost, but I'm going to just pretend it's something in the neighborhood of, I don't know, what, 250 per unit.
right. And like, at 10 years, like, you're going to be looking at upgrading for because the Chromebooks you bought 10 years ago have been destroyed by children for
Yeah.
10 years. So like you're gonna buy a new batch anyway, just because it gets harder to repair those. But like it's definitely better than like when I wrote about this originally years ago, and Chromebooks were maxing out at like 6 years. That was really bad.
Yes, I would agree. 6 years is that point where something is wrong. You really need to support it longer, especially because of the target market. But at 10 years, I feel reasonably confident that once that dead by date comes, it's okay. Write them off. Send them to recycling. It's time. Now, of course, I'm sure the schools themselves are looking at that going, well, if we could still squeeze a little more time out of this processor, we would.
Yeah.
And they probably, in some cases, do. But yeah, I mean, I'm always going to cheer on, like, please extend further. If you can find a way to support these for 20 years, do it. But I'm less inclined to give them trouble at 10. And yeah, I'll agree. I think they probably should have created less of a loophole to get around the 2020 situation. But yeah, at the bare minimum, 10 is a good number going forward, at least for a long time.
Yep.
Okay, so do you want to talk about the Microsoft leaks? I think you can't resist it, right?
I can for 10 minutes, and then I need to bolt.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't have like a lot of opinions about this, just because, like, kind of the thing that's frustrated me about these leaks a little bit is the like, obviously, like, this is something that's definitely worth like reporting and talking about, because it's just interesting. Like, we never see this kind of internal discussion in a company about like their products years in advance,
Unless they're being sued by Epic.
right? Then we get a or your Microsoft and it's 1996. But yeah, there's also been a lot of reporting where I feel like it's not like being truthful about the events. Like, I don't know how many headlines I've seen of like Phil Spencer wants to buy Nintendo. It's like, yeah, he wanted to buy Nintendo 3 years ago. I don't know if that's still relevant.
Well, let's be fair. I'm sure he still wants to buy it today.
I'm sure he wants to. Is he going to? No.
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 No, I feel like I've made this argument pretty extensively in Discord. There's just no possible way Microsoft will be allowed to acquire another game company, especially a major player, especially one that is making that is one of the only 3 major console makers. I just cannot imagine any government giving the green light on this. Like, yes, it's gaming, so it's not technically a requirement, but it's also gaming, one of the biggest industries that we have.
I think it could be possible, but only if Nintendo was fully in the US. Because then this would just be like
that
when Sprint got absorbed, and it was fine. Or we give the rights to Mario to an upstart gaming company, and they can be the new Nintendo, and that's how we handle it in America. God bless.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't even say, because with the case you bring up Sprint, and I do agree that's kind of a bad example of us. Like, it's not a bad example in the sense of like the example is wrong. It's an example of us doing something poorly, because there were 4 competitors, arguably 5, I guess, if you want to count US Cellular or something. And then next thing you know, there was 1 fewer competitor, and that's not very good, especially because it also kind of screwed US Cellular into irrelevance.
It said give Mario to Dish Network.
Oh God.
Yeah, I think they could do something.
That'd be so bad. But yeah, I kind of look at it and think there are too few competitors to see another one be swallowed up. So that alone would have basically guaranteed Microsoft could never get Nintendo. I
Right.
think Phil Spencer even recognized that probably 3 years ago, and very likely that's why they didn't continue pursuing this, or at least not very
Right.
obviously.
Especially because Nintendo's consoles are historically have not been feature comparable to the other players. So that would effectively bring the market options down further, or I don't know the best way to say that, but like I don't know.
If you're one of those people who doesn't want to buy from Microsoft for one ethical reason or another, and maybe Sony doesn't offer what you want, or you don't want to
Right.
buy from them for an ethical reason, then yeah, you'd be pretty much SOL. Then your only option is to go buy an iPhone and just play whatever's on the App Store. Uh, I say somewhat sarcastically.
Yeah. So do you have like one specific thing about the leaks that I can talk about? I don't. There was kind of a lot. I guess it was the thing about the new console that kind of was the big part. The
Oh,
updated Series X that doesn't have
right.
a disk drive.
Um,
Um,
yeah, that was. Got it somewhere in here too.
Here we
Um,
go. I found the Verge's thing.
okay.
Okay, I'll put that in YouTube chat. So yeah, um, one of the things that leaked in this presentation is a supposed Xbox Series X update, which is coming in 2024. And by the way, this is also from 2020, right? This document, or 2021. I don't know how this is recent. Um,
Yeah, this is not something that they have designed in the last year.
yeah. The Okay, so the PDF that Verge embedded said it was sent on May of 2022. I don't know if that's necessarily when the document was created, but I'm assuming somewhere around there. But so things can change. This might not be the final one, but um, this one it looks like a Series X. Yeah, okay. So Nil says May 2022. Um, so this one does show an updated Series X. It's now a cylinder instead of a box. It doesn't have a disk drive, which is interesting. Um, Microsoft has already been kind of moving away from physical media. Physical Xbox games don't sell all that well, just because they've been selling the S now as a budget option for forever, which does not have a disk drive. And I'll say, like, I bought my Series X like 8 months ago. The disk drive has been exclusively for Blu-ray movies and a handful of like Xbox 360 games I found for cheap. Because all I have, I got Game Pass, and the digital games go on sale very often, and usually for the same price or cheaper than I could get them physically. So yeah, I caved.
Uh, I feel like this should probably even be a separate topic one of these days, because I'd love to sort of talk through why I don't do physical media either. Um, but yeah, in general, I'm sorry, but I think we're closing in on basically the end of physical media for games. Not entirely. It's not like it's gonna be gone right away, and I could even see it lasting into the next generation of consoles, maybe. But yeah, it's
I
not
wouldn't.
unreasonable for Microsoft to sort of give up on this, especially seeing as Game Pass has been pretty successful.
Yeah, I mean, ideally there would be something adjacent to it that maybe isn't the same thing. Um, just because not everyone has super fast internet, but Yeah, I mean, this is how like PC gaming has gone. Like, physical media died on PC a long time ago, um, and yeah, Diablo said there's no such thing as physical CDs anymore. Too, they just hold licenses now,
Yes.
right? Xbox is sort of like that, partially because they do a different approach where you buy a disc and it will use whatever the right version is for your console. There's not like a distinct, like with PlayStation, there's like very distinct difference between this is the PS4 game and this is the PS5 one. It's not as seamless. So my understanding is that Xbox is closer to just license on a disc now, um, whereas Sony's still doing like you buy the PS5 game, like most of the game is on the disc and it works offline, is my understanding. Um,
So that's true, but it's also not entirely true. It depends on the game, and there. I don't think there's anything surprising about this. There are instances where you can get a game disc, and I'm sure this has got to be true with Xbox as well. You could get a game disc where a lot of the resources, for whatever reason, get even just like a signature change or any number of reasons. All of a sudden, you're basically re-downloading your whole game.
yeah, and I mean the game has to be cached on the console itself anyway, because disk
Yeah,
drives are not that fast. So,
yeah.
but that's a
So,
that's a different thing.
yeah, well, yeah, for sure. Well, I know what you're saying, but I mean, I'm talking about actual re-downloads from a
Right.
server.
Yeah, that's
So,
the difference. There's a difference between just moving everything from the CD to the console and then
yeah.
downloading more.
So it's certainly becoming fairly common that regardless of what's on the disc, you're really just in many cases getting the disc for the license. And you're still dependent on having a good internet connection. I mean, I remember people who would take their console to a friend's place so that they could download the ridiculously large game, and then they drag their console back to their place to play it. Like
Yeah.
this hasn't gone away. It's surely less common now than it used to be, but it hasn't and won't be going away anytime soon. We still live in a world where, or at least a country where high-speed internet is kind of a hit and miss thing.
Yeah, and like I again, like I like the fact that the disk drive is there because it also makes the Xbox more of a complete media center. Like, it's not the best Blu-ray player, but like it is one that's kind of cool, and it plays, CDs if you want those, or DVDs. So that would remove that aspect. I know like everyone bullied Xbox when they tried to be a media center, but that's nice to have that in there in the box I paid $500 for.
Yeah.
Um, I would hope that if they went all digital like this across like the entire thing, like there would be some system in place where like you could still have transferable licenses. I don't know what that would look like. Maybe like you go to the store and you get like a cheapo USB key. I don't know what that would look like or how that would work. But
I, I'm
I'm
picturing.
I'm not like stuck on the idea of like we desperately need these giant discs that get over manufactured and then end up in trash somewhere.
I am picturing this really dumb future where transferable licenses exist sort of the same way that. God, you're gonna hate this. Sort of the same way NFTs do, where it's baked into the license that every transfer you make has a cost associated with it. That way, the company can keep making money off of you selling the game.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
and I could just kind of see that always being a thing.
yeah, and again, like you know, that's something that also doesn't exist on PC anymore. So consumers are already kind of used to this. I think there would be people upset because they what basically killed the Xbox One was that initial event where they were like, yeah, we don't like really do like transferable game purchases anymore. Like, you buy the CD and it's like hard coded to your account or whatever, and they very quickly reversed that, but that helped kill Xbox for that previous generation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I would hope there'd be some alternative to the disk drive if they want to remove that. Maybe that's an external disk drive. I don't know. That's been rumored for like a PS5. It's not really clear if that's happening either. Um,
Yeah. So, forgive me, I forget who pointed it out, but um, yeah, now that these leaks have come out, it's also got oh, Diablo said this. Um, yeah, now nobody wants to buy new controllers because they know a new controller is on the way. Um, or well, they don't want to buy current controllers knowing that a new one's on the way. And yeah, I mean that's like anything. You should never buy current phones when a new one is on the way because at a bare minimum the older ones will get a discount and the newer ones will be better. Hopefully. That's not always the case. But
yeah, I mean maybe the controller is better, but like the Xbox controllers have not like significantly changed
no.
since the one. Like you can still use an Xbox One controller and it's fine. It's not like Sony actually like basically fully redesigned their controller for the PS5. Um, so yeah, no, it's fine. I'm not going to be losing sleep over maybe buying another controller at some point in the future. But yeah, definitely interesting. There was also um, I see Wi-Fi 6E support in this, which is kind of interesting because this was supposed to come out in 2024 when we're supposed to be getting Wi-Fi 7 stuff. Um, I guess what jumped out to me originally about this is that this looks exactly like a fake leak, in terms of like things that you can like kind of expect would happen, but are still kind of disappointing. Uh, like if someone had like Corbin, can you try to guess what might happen to the next Xbox? I'd probably make something like this. Like it's just like very predictable. This is what we always get on these like sort of half cycle regions. Like yeah, it's a little bit more efficient. They changed the look again. You know.
In my interpretation, first off, like you're calling out why wouldn't it be Wi-Fi 7? Um I think back over almost every console I have ever seen, and very few of them have actually had like the latest technologies. Um, or the thing that is the latest technology is usually like a thing that had to be built sort of alongside the console. Like they might do it with a processor, GPU. They might do it with um in the case of the Wii, some of the motion control features. That was the latest tech that they could get because it was sort of developed alongside the console. In the case of something like Wi-Fi 7, let's be honest, like they probably already made their designs, plans, they've already been building the software for it. And integrating Wi-Fi 7 just may not have really been in the process.
Yeah.
Plus, for licensing and costs and various other factors, I could see why that just might not be there. Also, does it matter?
No, that's what I was gonna say. Is like no one's gonna have a Wi-Fi 7 router for like 2, 3, 4, 5 more years.
Well,
Like,
even take away the availability of it, though that's actually a really good point because nobody upgrades their networking hardware with super high frequency. I mean, it just doesn't happen. Most people buy their most people buy their access points router or whatever you want to call it. Most people buy that hardware and they don't upgrade for 10 years. People hold on to that stuff a very long time. Um, so yeah, I honestly like there is that, but also does it matter? Like the difference between 6E and 7, it's there, but
it helps. I will say one thing that like after using the Series X that I would like to see is a significantly improved local play. Like when you do that today, the bit rate is not great. Like it's fine, but it could be better. And part of that is having better Wi-Fi hardware. Um, and part of that is having, like, right now my Xbox is now on Ethernet. I did run a line like around like part of my wall to make that happen. But the bit rate is still limited by whatever hardware is being used. So like I would hope that there would be better Wi-Fi and I guess a dedicated like video encoder for that kind of stuff.
Okay,
Um,
so what is your Series X on? Is it Wi-Fi 6 or 6E? I'm assuming 6.
it might be 5.
Oh, okay.
Um, Again, I my issue also was that for whatever reason the Xbox operating system kept trying to connect to my Eero over 2.4 gigahertz instead of 5.
Yeah, that's
And
not
I
helping you.
again because Eero, has missing a few options. I had no way to like force it to go to 5. Yeah, Xbox Series X is just 5. So
Okay. So a jump to 6E, I'm just going to call it, that probably solves most of this issue.
yeah,
So if the 2024 refresh is not going to necessarily demand whatever I apologize. I don't pay close enough attention to the difference between 6E and 7 Wi-Fi standards. But if 6E is going to fit the bill, if it's going to deliver enough performance, and there's really not going to be a big jump in performance from 6E to 7, I'm not seeing a big argument for why they should go, or why it would be a big loss if they don't go to 7.
yeah, it doesn't matter a lot. It's just I would think it would be good.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, as Barney would say, newer is always better. But yeah, in this instance, I think it would be great, just it won't matter that much.
yeah, the limiter on the local play is definitely just like whatever video encoding solution they have is not good enough. So
That
that
too.
would be different hardware.
Yeah.
Which I'd hope they'd improve, especially because Sony's now trying to do that with their handheld thing. So if Microsoft could try to make their apps better for that, that'd be cool. But
Yeah.
anyway, so yep, I'm out of time, so I have to go now.
All right. Well, anything you want to say before we're taking off?
Um, I will say I did write a explainer for the privacy sandbox in Google Chrome on my newsletter. So there it is. Enjoy. It's the best explanation you'll find, probably.
The best
Okay.
you'll find.
Yep, that's it.
All right.
Bye.
Well, take it easy, man. Okay, so let's see. I've been doing my best to keep up with the comments, but I'm a little behind. Just taking off from where I was. Diablo having said, next PS5 refresh comes with 7 and the fanboys will gloat. Yeah, actually, that is, sadly, that is probably the one truest argument for going to 7 because it will, because any opportunity just to flaunt something over the competitor is kind of where the discussion is at between PlayStation versus Xbox fans. Nils, Wi-Fi 7 won't be adapted to most homes until 2026 or 2027. Honestly, I'm not kidding when I say this. I don't think it's even going to be that fast. I think what we've seen in the past is when new Wi-Fi standards come out, you like a new Wi-Fi standard comes out and probably less than 1% of people upgrade to it within the first year because most people are happy with the hardware they have, and there's in a lot of instances it's only the like hardcore really enthusiast types that are jumping on something as soon as it comes out, especially because they know the good hardware isn't going to come out for another probably 2 years. But then you have a very long tail where people have, somewhere in not too distant history, they already bought something. And other people, like, even when someone does decide to upgrade, they're probably giving away or selling their old equipment to somebody else who is then going to hold on to that for a very, very long time. So, I mean, there will certainly be people running Wi-Fi 7 before the end of next year, no question. I think the vast majority of people are not going to see Wi-Fi 7 for probably, I'm more inclined to guess, at least 6 years. It possibly longer. I don't know, maybe it'll be a little sooner, but yeah, I think even 2026 to 2027 is optimistic. And most people, like, even I'm sure I've done this too. I think most people probably skip a lot of generations when they do upgrades. I'm sure people who are still upgrading from like 802.11ac right now. I would bet anything AC is still running very, very commonly in a lot of homes. And I don't even remember what that technically equates to in Wi-Fi generations anymore, but it's really old. So anyway, let's see. Diablo saying true. They never think of upgrading modems, routers until it dies. Confirming Wi-Fi 5 on Series X. It would help with cloud gaming too. Yeah. I mean, any upgrade is going to help with cloud gaming, but at this stage, and I could be wrong on this, but I have a feeling, at least with like Wi-Fi 6, maybe 6E, you're pretty much capping out in terms of the performance you need in order to service cloud gaming. I don't think you really need to get nearly as high as 7 in order to fit what any cloud gaming service wants to offer you. Let's see. All right. And now I am caught up on comments. So, let's see. Digging into the other aspects of this leak, which I guess we've already kind of hit the rumor stuff. We've hit the game studio acquisition stuff, sort of. I mean, we could have gone deeper into how, in all likelihood, the ZeniMax acquisition really just... I think Phil Spencer probably at some point saw Nintendo wasn't realistic, at which point they moved to go after ZeniMax. That was sort of the common sense move. Going after Activision Blizzard, I would say that was a moonshot, and I'm still shocked that they're getting it. The more time goes by, the more there's still question if they're gonna get it, but like, honestly, it was a surprise. Pixel Watch 2 just hit the Google Play console. Of course it did. We'll see. I'm assuming nothing particularly interesting has come of it hitting the Play console. But anyway. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The other thing, obviously, like, we now have Microsoft's sort of semi-official opinion that the more exciting thing, like, these are old plans. They've said this now publicly. These are old plans, and they've got really exciting things in the works that they can't wait to show people next year. So that's, it's a nice message, but as much as I agree, I think things are going to change between what we have today or what we're seeing here in these leaks versus what's going to actually come out. I do have a feeling that these leaks are very close. Just call it a hunch. they're very close to what's actually going to come out, because even though they may be outdated already, and by the time these products actually come out, they're going to be more outdated. The practical reality is, due to the way that game consoles are manufactured and the lead time that they need for manufacturing and the way that they try to do everything very, very cost efficient, the reality is they go through a very long design process. And chances are they've already finalized the hardware. They're now going into like sourcing product, making sure that they've got a reliable source for all the components. And they're very likely working out factory production, like getting the production line prepared, ready to go, and designing every little aspect of this, finishing the design of the manufacturing tooling. So those are fairly big jobs. They take some time, and you got to start those early. You have to start them really early. So my hunch is whatever we're seeing in these leaks is surely not final version, but it's very likely close. Like, the final versions probably didn't come too far after what the leaks show. Let's see, Diablo saying, at least Microsoft is not delusional as we think they are in terms of winning the console wars anytime soon. We don't know that. We do not know that. They could be very delusional. Let's see, Nils. Hardware will be fixed very early, so it's more about software optimized now. Yes. Yeah. They're working on software aspects. So the leaks showing hardware, they represent what is very likely close to finished versions. The software can and will change. That's just how it is. Oh, sorry, have to throw in the stretch. Which, speaking of, I'm not sure how much longer I'm gonna go, just because I'm running on low sleep and I have work of my own. But I have a couple more topics I'm definitely gonna hit for sure. Let's see. Nils, if they want to ship next year in 12 months, the Series S upgrade, they need to have it fixed now. Yeah, no, that's 100% true. And we don't know yet if there's going to be an S upgrade. I don't see why there wouldn't be. We just know of an X. And I wouldn't be surprised for a second if there's also an S. And whatever they're doing with the X, it's probably going to have to go through kind of a similar process. I wouldn't be surprised if they also make it a little bit more similar to the X for numerous reasons. Not least of which is I think they'd like to stop. I'm just guessing, but I think they would probably want to stop having them be so different that it's going to be an expensive proposition to make a game work on two different versions of a console. Oh, the S upgrade was in the same presentation? Okay. Same design, same connectivity upgrades. Okay. Let's see. And Phil said the internal memos, sorry your work, saw the light of day like that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think there was no assumption. Well, there has been some theories that this was all fake, but no, I think we know this is all real. It's just how much it will change between what they had at the time and what's going to end up coming out. How much change there is could be hard to predict. I'm predicting it won't be very much, but you never know. Not until it comes out. We just aren't going to know how significant the changes are. And if they were showing more of the software, I think we would probably be predicting there would be bigger changes, but can't know that until it comes out. Nils, how much can they still change and not delay stuff? Uh, oh, based on public feedback, very little in practical terms. I mean, I'm not in I'm not in command of their supply chain, their manufacturing process, or any of that stuff, but I'm not kidding when I say they are very likely, if they're not already there, they're probably going to be moving on to tooling very, very soon. Because what typically happens when you're talking about something like this, Microsoft is very likely going, or well, any company, I say any company, Microsoft, Sony, or Nintendo at this stage. Let's say do we have an estimated release date? I know it's in 2024, but do they give even like a quarter? I'm assuming it's going to be late 2024, but I don't know that. Yeah, okay, it's no specific time period. Oh, Nils, okay, saying X is end of October, S would be September. Okay, so hypothetical, let's say that those are accurate. Microsoft might still have other delays, but who cares? In all likelihood, to deliver the consoles in those dates, so it's a year for the S, a year and a month for the X. So 60 days between them. Oh, okay, so beginning of September for the S. All right, well, that works too. Either way, you got to figure manufacturing, they're probably going to have at least a month straight of manufacturing units before they even sell the first one. Prior to that, they're probably going to go through, I wouldn't be surprised if there's about a month, maybe not a full month, it could be a bit less, but they're probably going to go through a parts acquisition stage where it's literally just about bringing in all the necessary parts to build each unit. Prior to that, and I'm kind of counting backwards here, and rounding a little bit, but prior to that, you're probably looking at basically about a 2-month process of manufacture, test. So this assumes the tooling's already done. And they're probably going to manufacture a few units right on the line and go through tests, make sure everything is solid. And if they have to make any changes, they want to have several weeks for sure to be able to make to account for that. So that's adding up to as much as 4 months right there. And then there's tooling that comes before that. Tooling is not a short process. Tooling for something like this, again, like I said before, that you're trying to make it as efficient as possible. So you need to be able to make the custom shell. It has to be reliably made. It has to be easy enough to process on a line. It has to be something that can basically be run through robots. So the tooling process becomes a fairly long step. It's not nearly as long with something like an iPhone, where you're making 3 relatively small parts. And iPhones go through a fairly long tooling process. When you're talking about something like a game console, it's going to be more because you're making plastic components. You've got various metal components that have to fit within that. Back when there were disk drives involved, this was a much bigger problem. Run by robots and underpaid Asian people. Don't forget children. Always children. But anyway. yeah, this is a long process. So I would estimate that to if they want to make changes, they have probably until the end of this year. After that, no more changes. It I and you know, the amount of change that you can make between now and the end of this year is actually probably pretty rudimentary. So, yeah, I would genuinely be surprised if Microsoft weren't locking it down and getting ready right about now. I mean, again, if they want to make a last ditch push, yeah, they can probably change stuff up until, you know, maybe the turn of the year, like early January. But that would be the end. You don't make changes after that. So, yeah, that's kind of where I see it. Again, I don't manage supply chain, but we've been hearing about this stuff for years. Um, if you go back to like some of what companies were telling us about, uh, like manufacturing phones, they've talked about it. Who was it? I don't want to say OnePlus. I don't think it was them, but they somebody talked very extensively. Maybe it was Andy Rubin's first company, whatever the hell their name was. Essential. I think it was Essential. They talked about the manufacturing process. Maybe it was OnePlus. Who cares? Anyway, somebody talked about how long their development cycle is, and how long it takes. Like once you've picked what your phone is going to be, and once you've designed what the components have to be, then going through that tooling process and everything else, like that is like many months in the making in order to do the round trips of manufacturing, checking, getting prototypes through, going back, fixing things, and eventually someday you actually start manufacturing. And even in from manufacturing to shipping, you've got sometimes a fairly long process. So yeah, I'm thinking that this is going to be like any console. This is not a fast thing. You don't throw these together at a whim. Let's see. But yeah, saying it again, the software will change. The software is going to change every freaking week. Probably a few times a week for the first month. And then it will eventually drop down to changing once every couple of weeks. And eventually they'll get down to like once a month or something. But yeah, the software is going to keep getting tons of bug fixes. They're going to keep changing stuff, especially in the early days. Yeah, that's just how it goes. Though, since these are refreshes, I do kind of wonder if the software will maybe not change that much. It seems like the big software changes usually come more when the major new model hits, not the like interim years. Anyway, so speaking of games, bit of a follow-up. Unity has backtracked. Not in a big way, but they've basically admitted, like, we recognize it. People weren't happy. And so they've now basically committed to making changes, but they haven't said anything else. I believe their statement acknowledged that people weren't happy about the pricing, but or policy aspects. But generally speaking, we don't really know what's going to come of this. I can't help but think that Unity is doomed. At least not like doomed completely, but doomed to not be super relevant. Like they've scared off a lot of developers. I think most developers, and a lot of them have said this much, at this stage, the only way they would ever even consider using Unity again is if most of the executive team gets fired, the CEO has to be fired. Basically, everyone there who has any amount of control has to go. And that's the only way they would consider ever using Unity again. And yeah, this is why people leave. This is why people throw away sometimes lots of work, because they see the projects they're working on suddenly become unviable just because someone tries to act like a patent troll, or it's some part of what they're working with is no longer a viable option. Anyway, so not a lot to say on that. I just figured I'd bring it up because how do you not? But also, transitions are just gonna flow here. They're so easy. Also, let's briefly talk about other dumb things that people in leadership have decided to do. Elon Musk is suggesting, not committing to this yet, but suggesting he wants to just simply make everyone have to pay in order to even use Twitter. It's unclear if this would necessarily replace Twitter Blue, or if people would be required to just pay the full price for Twitter Blue in order to get there, and then would they still be verified? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, this is basically calling on all of Twitter's current users to start paying a fee just to access the site. I'm gonna call it out now. Dumbass. Not going to work. Terrible idea. And the reason, well, there's so many good reasons, but not least of which is if you're going to charge for access to the site, you're almost guaranteed to pretty much lose all of your advertisers. They're not going to want to work with a company that's chasing off a lot of users. And the practical reality is he's almost certainly making more money off of advertisers per user than he is just charging the users outright. That's kind of a weird economics 101 situation here. Nils, no, it's actually a good idea since everyone has to find an alternative then. I don't disagree with that. No, at this stage, look, I'm not the biggest fan of Blue Sky for numerous reasons. But look, people are definitely going to move to that. I think Threads, by all accounts, like everyone I know who went to Threads in any capacity has come away saying that it's so dead now. Like the algorithm kind of fakes that there's activity, but a lot of people seem to be finding that Threads is producing very little. So much less than I think anyone really was hoping or expecting. And Mastodon, look, I'd be lying if I said Mastodon was doing all that impressively lately. I haven't looked in a few days, but let's take a quick look. Because I'm sure stats are going to show it. For the last several days at least, most of the new user stats have been... Wait, what? Oh, that doesn't seem right. Okay, hold on. Let's... So apparently, there have been 1,600 new users in the last hour. I have a feeling this is blowback because of Elon's quasi announcement. Let's see if I go back a few days. Yeah, this is more like it. Going back, oh, that's not even a few days. This is 10 hours ago. The number was 287 new users in the last hour. So, I mean, this is kind of the state of... I assume everyone... No, if you're the type of person who's abandoning Twitter, you probably would have already done it. If you're the type of person to stick with Twitter, you're probably going to be there until they give up. And this, like, the same is probably happening everywhere. I think most people have kind of decided where they want to be, where they want to stay, If you're paying for Twitter, you're probably going to keep paying for Twitter. If you move to Mastodon, you're going to stick with Mastodon. Like, I doubt anyone is actively hopping services anymore, at least not in big numbers. The exception, of course, being every time Elon announces something new that's obviously going to fail, more and more people are like, yeah, no, peace, thanks, it was fun, you're wackadoo, but hey, we're gonna keep watching, because why the hell not? Let's see. David saying, believe Blue Sky saw its biggest increase today. I'd believe that, just because so many people think that being charged by Elon is not really going to work for them. I don't know. That's certainly, I would certainly not want to be stuck with that particular mess, but yeah, it could vary. Anyway, so yeah, I don't see a good long future for Twitter, and I'm okay with that. I just couldn't care less if his entire acquisition or entire purchase just ends up being wasted money. Good. Let's please watch the billionaire fail yet again. Okay, so kind of not much more to say on that. I don't know what Corbin had to say about it, but just to quickly acknowledge, he did want to talk about the new Yeti mic from Logitech. I don't, or maybe he wanted to talk about other stuff. I'm not really sure. I don't really have anything to say here, but I have to say the fact that they're finally moving to USB-C is kind of a big deal. Not that it should be a big deal, but this is a company that was still that currently is still shipping mics that use micro and mini USB. I mean, look, at this stage, it's not acceptable to still be using those. So, cheers. It's good that they finally kind of caught up to modernization. David, kind of wish the apps started working together. You want Blue Sky feed on your Threads account? Yep. Strictly speaking, they could. It's not impossible. I'm not optimistic though. Anyway, so yeah, I do question like how the Logitech mics sound. Are they nice to use? Are the LEDs a little over the top? It's hard to tell in photos. Anyway, yeah, we'll see. That one's, I think we'll get those details soon enough as people start reviewing these. But I don't know how interested large parties of people are. So David, are my Yeti's review units? My original Blue Yeti I bought. I technically bought it to be on the Android Police podcast. Let's see. Diablo, why did complain? Why not use USB-C already? Okay, so I can kind of merge those two comments. So this mic, the Yeti X, this was a review unit, and they did let me keep it. The thing that shocks me is it is micro USB, and if you see my review of it, which I posted in chat at some point a while back. Though I guess, hold on, it's easy enough to find Yeti X review. Yeah, here's the review, and let's see. Yeah, even in the not so good section, I wrote that micro USB is better than mini USB, but this should have been Type C. I mean, this review was in 2019. It's not that far back. There really is no good argument for why this was a Type C, or sorry, why this was a micro USB microphone. They absolutely should have gone with Type C even back then. And I mentioned this at least twice during the review. Yeah, twice. So, yeah, it's plainly obvious. I think that this should have been Type C. It's weird that it wasn't. Nils saying a lot of his German friends are using Blue Sky now. Okay. I mean, you know, you kind of get stuck going where your friends go. And I know you weren't super against Blue Sky before. We've talked about this to an extent. And if I think I sent an invite to you. Now I don't quite remember. By the way, if anyone needs Blue Sky codes, actually, do they even still require the codes? Anyway, if people still need them, I'm sure I've got probably a couple dozen by now. Assuming that they accumulate. Anyway, yeah, so I don't know. I may try to get a review unit for this. Funny enough, I may have other microphone things happening. Possible. I need to run through and check on that. But I would like to try more mics. That's one big thing. I like reasonably well what this mic can do, but I don't think it suits my voice as well as it could. And this is something that if you talk to people who are in broadcasting, if you talk to people who have to do voiceovers and recordings of any kind, it's really interesting to start hearing them talk about how well a particular mic performs with their voice and how well it suits them. This one, I don't think it does very good things for my voice. It's okay. It's not bad. It's not as good as it could be. Let's see. So yeah, that's kind of the whole story with this. The biggest cringe thing is more LEDs. It is the only way Logitech knows how to be. All right. Let's see. Corbin did bring up that iOS 17 is available today. I do not actually have anything to say because I really haven't looked at it, and I'm assuming it's all the same stuff we've probably already talked about. I don't know. But also, and I don't think that it's a mistake, that on the same day iOS 17 comes out, we now have details and actually availability of Android 14 QPR1. I'm not going to go through Mishal's list of all the things. Honestly, I already read through it, or at least up to the point. I don't know. Maybe he's posted more stuff to it, but I already read through this, and everything in here, with two singular exceptions, everything in here is really dull. Or at least not very good for discussion. A few of them are actually like really cool improvements, but there's nothing really to say about them. But the only two that kind of warrant attention, one is you can change the aspect ratio for apps, which means that any app that decides to only draw on a particular orientation and size, not filling the screen, you will be able to basically force it to draw to fit the screen. Or at least that's kind of approaching the purpose. Nice feature. We'll see how much it gets used and how much weirdness it might require. I think we don't know. Anyway, so there's that. And I'm sure this will make plenty of people happy if they're using tablets and foldables. Outside of that, though, doesn't really matter. The other one, and I think that this is pretty cool, you will be able to use a Pixel phone. You'll be able to use a Pixel phone as a PC webcam. The same thing that you've been able to do with a iPhone for, I honestly don't know how long. But yeah, people have been able to use their iPhones as webcams. Now you'll be able to do it with the Pixel. That's cheers. Yay. That's actually a really cool addition. I don't know how much people are going to do it or use it, but hey, if you don't like the webcam on your computer, you can now replace it in a roundabout, probably overcomplicated way. That being said, and here's the crazy hot take of the day. If we can now use a pretty large portion of devices as our webcam, and this is a feature that, as far as I can tell, is universally available, or will be universally available. Like, presumably you'll be able to do the same thing with a Samsung phone or Asus or Xiaomi, whoever. If we can agree on that, can we agree? Oops, didn't mean to hit that. Can we agree that it is finally time to get rid of, yes, get rid of bad laptop webcams? Also, good laptop webcams. Let's get rid of both. Yes, I'm actually serious about that. Let's get rid of both the good and the bad laptop webcams. We don't need them. We just don't. So let's, instead of suffering through these abysmal, unpleasant things like the notch. Yes, the notch. Hold on. I was hoping to find something before this, but I guess that's not going to happen. Man, their advertising is so bogus. Anyway, just pretend there's a notch up there. Let's get rid of the notch. It's okay. We can now replace our webcams with real phones. Yay. Kill the notch. Just saying. Nils, your phone will also be way better than the webcam. Yes. So much better. Well, depending on the webcam, obviously. You can have a really good webcam, but yeah, your phone is going to make a better webcam, generally speaking. At least good enough. As long as you know. Well, yeah. I was gonna make a joke, but I'm not coming up with a good enough punchline on it, to be honest. Anyway, Nils, you don't see the notch a lot since you use external screens. I use external screens pretty often, but I still unhook the laptop reasonably often and take it to other rooms and places. Honestly, the notch wouldn't bother me if it wasn't displacing menus. And especially in like DaVinci Resolve, where the menu bar takes up as much room as you can possibly give it. I would love to just be able to do away with the notch and reclaim the space that gets lost to it. But anyway, so yeah, that's that about covers the topics. I would invite more, but honestly, I am tired. My voice is starting to kill me, so I'm gonna call that a show. Let's see. So first off, before I describe the rest of the stuff, quick thing. If you'd like to support the show, And of course, thank you to all who are here and who do support the show in any capacity, including the Patreon subscribers, Diablo, Carson, Austin, and David. And of course, one-time contributors or occasional contributors. Curvy Mermaid has been recently on that list. If you'd like to join in, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. It does help out. It is welcome. And it definitely does keep the show going. Let's see. And speaking of the show going on, I should be streaming this weekend probably some Fall Guys. Probably, maybe. We'll see. Some Overwatch 2. David, I have bad news. You may remember I said I was going to try to do a photo stream tomorrow. Due to... actually, I'll even talk about really quickly what happened. So, some of you may remember I've been reviewing, or have reviewed, now it's just waiting to get published. I reviewed a DJI drone, the Air 3, and there was unfortunately an incident while it was landing. It started drifting. It almost drifted into a river. I managed to cancel the landing just in time to stop it from touching down in water. Unfortunately, when I did that, it caused the drone to, it allowed the drone to continue drifting. I didn't do anything, but I lost control. Like, the controller stopped being able to affect it. So it managed to drift its way into some vines or bushes, and when it hit, it immediately it stopped the propellers. It tumbled into the water. I dove in after it, got it out of the water within 12 seconds, which I think was pretty fast. And it was actually still broadcasting. It did not die in that moment, which was amazing. However, it is definitely misbehaving. I've tried flying it since. I've also taken the battery that did get submerged, and that is not in use anymore. But I contacted DJI to basically ask, hey, what do you want me to do with the battery that did go underwater? And I asked about that 2 weeks ago, something like that, and I have still not gotten an official decision or answer of what to do. I'm waiting on that. However, my original plans were to go into town and do some grocery shopping and return the drone on Tuesday. DJI has not given me a response yet, so I rescheduled for Thursday, tomorrow, which was when I was going to stream. Now, one way or another, I have to go in tomorrow because of grocery shopping. You can only delay certain things so much. But yeah, I still can't drop off the drone, so I don't know when that's going to end up happening. But, well, not unless they get back to me before tomorrow. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so unfortunately, I won't be around tomorrow to stream. So no photo edit streaming tomorrow. But I still have a bunch of photos to edit, and the list of photos to edit is going to get a lot larger after tomorrow. That's one thing I will be doing while I'm out tomorrow, is getting a lot of photos. So there will be more to edit in the near future. In fact, I'm swimming in photos that I need to edit. So David, your tequila will not be necessary tomorrow, but just be ready. Get a bottle. It's coming. I don't know. There's a very, believe me, I would not count on this, but there's a very slim possibility of a Friday stream after I do movie post. More than likely, it's gonna end up being like next week or something, or maybe a surprise weekend double stream. We'll see what happens. Diablo, they probably don't know what to do. So first off, I know Well, I don't know this, but I've heard sort of casually mentioned almost every single drone that they send, or almost every new drone that they announce when they send out review units, there's always like a handful that crash either into water or get destroyed somehow. So it's not the strangest thing. But you know, the reason this one is a little bit specific is because a battery went into water. There's no question about being able to return the drone in a non-working state because there won't be a battery in it when it ships. But returning the battery that was submerged in water, I'm asking them specifically what they want me to do about that. Should it be shipped? I personally don't think it should be. I think it should be disposed of. But if they tell me to ship it, I will claim not plausible deniability, but I'll claim that I can genuinely say they're the experts. They know if there's a danger associated with shipping a drone battery that has encountered water. I'm hoping that they just say, no, go ahead, dispose of it. I think that's the safest choice. But I have to defer to the experts on this one. So yeah, if they want it back, they want it back. Hopefully they just don't. Anyway, so but I do wish that they were a little quicker to answer. It seems like this should be something that they would be able to answer a little bit more on the spot. Because again, like, this happens sort of often. There just is a tendency for drones to kind of get crashed when they're reviewed. It just happens for one reason or another. Like, sometimes there are malfunctions. Sometimes it's, you know, sometimes it's because somebody screws up either intentionally or, you know, just because. Like, stuff happens. Anyway, yeah, you'd think they would just be more prepared with this. Regardless, you know, look, accidents happen. And I don't think that this is even a problem with the drone in general. I think it was just a problem with the unit I got, because also reviewers tend to get pre-production units, and I assume, because I've already seen some other weird behavior with mine, and it's behavior that would be common if it was common. Like, it wouldn't just be my unit that's suffering from it, unless my unit is a pre-production, or maybe they had some weird component issues. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about this particular drone model having a problem. I think that this is just a case of, whoops, this unit had a problem. Anyway, so that was a lot of extra for saying that I'm about to take off. Anyway, so tomorrow I will probably be out a good chunk of the day. Friday, movie post, you all know how that goes. Saturday, Sunday should be game streams, and then we'll try to get a photo stream somewhere in next week. Hopefully before RambleCast, but you never know. If not, well, RambleCast as usual next week. But with that, thank you all for coming by, hanging out, being part of the show, being part of the chat. You guys have been awesome today. And I will see you all in the next one. Good night, everybody.